Uconn, one of the most storied programs in women's college basketball. We got to talk about them. I don't like to keep you guys waiting. And with that being said, let me crank this bus up and let's get the rolling. What it do, peeps? It's the Beat Chef. This is The Ride. Hit that like, that share, that subscribe button. Hit that bell to get notified when I drop my next video. Hit that hype button. To my new subs, appreciate you for joining. I hope you get something out the content, and I hope you enjoy the show. To my day ones, the ones that helped me start this channel, build this channel, I appreciate each and every one of you. Uconn, storied franchise in both men and women's basketball. But today I'm just focusing on the women's side of the game. Recently, Rebecca Lobo was on the Sue Bird, A Touch More podcast, and she spoke about the CBA negotiations. While many people applauded what Rebecca Lobo said, she really said nothing. See, you got to understand Uconn. They're a unique breed. You figure Nafisa Collier and Breonna Stewart own Unrivaled. They also sit upon the executive committee for the Women's National Basketball Players Association. You have Sue Bird, an ex-Uconn alum and a minority owner in the Seattle Storm, the team in which she played for, the team which she has a statue standing outside of their stadium in her honor. And then you have Rebecca Lobo, the first great Uconn player, the 35-0 national championship player, Gino's first protege, the first representative of the WNBA. So they have history, and it all connects with Uconn. Now, if you didn't know Sue Bird was an owner, the way she talks, she does not speak like an owner of a WNBA team. She almost sounds like she's just neutral, but that's a part she plays. See, Sue Bird is still one of those old guard players that really hates the league, even though she's a minority owner. Not one time since she started her podcast has she acted in the fashion of an owner. Not one time. So when I saw that Rebecca Lobo was on her show, I knew right away these are two Connecticut Huskies running a game. Now let me explain, because I'm not going to play their video, but I will leave a link to it. At the beginning of the video, Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe, they talk about the WNBA and they touch on Unrivaled. Not too surprised by that, because they're both in a relationship. They're married. Now, Sue Bird is in the WNBA as an investor, and Megan Rapinoe is a investor in Unrivaled. So they're talking shop. They didn't talk really anything serious, because we know those ratings are terribly low. They didn't touch on that. But later on, they brought in Rebecca Lobo, and they asked her about the CBA. And Rebecca Lobo went into saying what everybody championed. She's finally admitting that the players are wrong, that they needed to. They're not talking. They're saying mean things, and everybody was applauding. And I'm sitting back, and I'm laughing, because if you didn't listen to the full interview, you heard the spin job that Rebecca Lobo did. See, Rebecca Lobo's been in the media for a long time. And you also must understand where Rebecca Lobo works at. ESPN, who has a vested interest in this league. Mind you, not even the last 3 weeks, Rebecca Lobo just got a nice extension to continue covering women's sports, in particular college basketball. So yes, it's in a vested interest for her to have the WNBA on the slate so she can call games with Ryan Russillo. But if you listen to what she said when she talked about the players, she made one fatal error. She said that the shirt protest at the All-Star game was good for the fans, good for the players, good for the league. And I was like, no. She said that it brought the fans closer to the players. And I was like, no. Now, as of October, she was on the Rachel Demita podcast, and she said that the players had the leverage because they had the fans. They had the leverage on their side. She was wrong then as well. The T-shirt thing was a terrible mistake. It it didn't get the reaction in the crowd as they thought. Many people were confused. Now, while I call them both con artists, they let her cook. And she said, per her sources, she said it was a great deal. And, you know, anytime you get $1 million, and she's towing the company line at this point. And then she doubled back and said, but the players should still get all they can get. And I'm sitting there laughing. And then she did the biggest double back ever. If you listen to her after she says that the fans were on the side of the players, she doubles back and then cancels her own statement by saying that the t-shirt and the t-shirt protest and after the All-Star break, there was a lot of fatigue about the CBA from the same weekend in which she just applauded them wearing the shirts. She said by the end of that weekend that it didn't feel the same. See, in the same sentence, same conversation, she told the truth and told a lie. The lie was that the t-shirt thing was popular. But just like in my series, Earth, Wind, and Fire, that was all wind. When she said that they were tired by that weekend of the players, that was the truth. That was the truth. That is the ESPN, out of the ESPN playbook. Tell the lie first and then tell the truth second. But everybody grabs the lie and runs with it. So they ran with the, oh, she's chastising the players. No, she didn't chastise the players. She wants them to get all they can get because she's going to get a cut of it. Remember, they're fighting for old benefits. That benefits her and Sue Bird. Ironically, when I saw the Rebecca Lobo angle, I was on Facebook and I saw this advertisement for a collaboration between Unrivaled and a company called T.U.S.S.L.E. Now, I knew T.U.S.S.L.E was. It's a company that was formed by 4 women, one of them being Sue Bird. They sponsor the Sue Bird podcast. They also sponsor the podcast by Sydney Colson. But I looked and I saw the Unrivaled angle, and they made a shirt and some apparel, and they've made a hockey shirt, a hockey jersey for Unrivaled. And let me show you how it looks. Let me show you how the shirt looks. Now they had my Soya Citron in the advertisement. I just shook my head. I'm like, so you're a WNBA owner, minority owner, whatever stake you got, and you're actively promoting through your company a rival company. It goes back to, like I said, the old WNBA hates their league. At any point, they will always try to destroy this league. And that's the bad part about having them in minority ownership positions, as that they constantly take digs at the product in which they invested. It's very weird. It's a very weird dynamic. She couldn't even explain why she has such a hatred for the league, but she does. And I'm pretty sure her stake in it is significantly small, and they're just using her for name value. But when you see Uconn players talking to each other, it's a racket. Uconn is con artists. Rebecca Lobo is a con artist. Sue Bird is definitely a con artist. Through and throughout. Nafisa Collier, Breonna Stewart. Even in the interview, if you wanted some information on the bargaining, you were talking to a minority owner. Get the answers on this podcast, and you would have got the public more informative. But they already know that they're both doing the shuck and jive. So that's why no hard-hitting questions were asked, no information that was due was given, because they're both running a con game. But I'll leave the link below to their video. You can watch the full thing, and you'll see when Rebecca Lobo circles around 1 minute. I'm talking about within 3 minutes. She said how great the All-Star game was, and then she circled back around and said, after the All-Star game, it got bad. After that weekend was over, it died. What happened? It never happened. There was no fan support. She mentioned along the lines of them showing Kathy Engelbert at the game and people booing. They weren't booing in support of the players. They were booing in support of Caitlin Clark and how Kathy Engelbert had treated Caitlin Clark. It wasn't for support of the players. But I like how you tried to conflate the two. But let me know your thoughts on the Uconn artists. Leave your comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, folks, peace.